The morning rain drummed against the windows of downtown Seattle's financial district like impatient fingers, each droplet carrying the weight of Maya Chen's mounting anxiety. She clutched her portfolio tighter as she hurried down Pine Street, her worn sneakers splashing through puddles that reflected the towering glass monuments to wealth surrounding her. The architectural firm of Harrison and Associates loomed ahead, its steel and glass facade as intimidating as the interview that awaited her inside. Hi, my beautiful family. Let me begin with a prayer straight from the heart. Dear God, please bless every soul watching this video. Fill their lives with peace, joy, and endless love. Amen. Welcome back, my family. You are not just viewers. You are my light during the dark days and my reason to keep going. To all new family members, welcome to the family. Please subscribe to the channel and introduce yourself in the comments. I truly want to know more about you. My beloved family, every story I bring is not just words. It is my sweat, my sleepless nights, and my sacrifice. When you leave early, it cuts deep as if my hard work is unseen and my voice unheard. Please stay till the end. I love you. Now let's begin the story. Maya had rehearsed her pitch 100 times in the cramped studio apartment she could barely afford. At 28, she was running out of chances to prove that her innovative sustainable housing designs could change the world, or at least change her own circumstances. The rejection letters from previous firms had piled up like autumn leaves, each one a reminder that being a brilliant architect meant nothing without connections, without the right skin color, without the luxury of coming from money. The construction site next to the Harrison building buzzed with activity despite the weather. Hard hats bobbed between scaffolding, and the rhythmic pounding of hammers created an urban symphony she'd grown to love. Maya paused to admire the skeletal framework rising from the earth. Another monument to progress, another building that would house the dreams of people who could afford to dream big. She was so lost in studying the building's structural integrity that she almost missed the man in the expensive charcoal suit stepping out of the black Tesla at the curb. Almost. But what she couldn't miss was the way the scaffolding above him groaned ominously, the way the loosened bricks, soaked and heavy from the rain, began their deadly descent toward his oblivious head. Time crystallized into slow motion, the way it does in moments that divide life into before and after. Without thinking, without calculating the risk to her own body or her precious portfolio, Maya launched herself forward. Her shoulder connected with the man's chest just as the first brick shattered against the pavement where he'd been standing. They tumbled together onto the wet sidewalk, Maya's body shielding him as more debris rained down around them. When the chaos settled and the dust cleared, Maya found herself staring into the most intense grey eyes she'd ever seen. They belonged to a face she recognized from Forbes covers and business journals. Alexander Sterling, the 34-year-old tech mogul whose renewable energy empire had made him one of the youngest billionaires in the country. And right now, those famous eyes were wide with shock, studying her face with an intensity that made her stomach flutter unexpectedly. "Are you hurt?" His voice was deeper than she'd expected, rough with concern and something else she couldn't identify. Maya realized she was still lying partially on top of him, her dark curls falling like a curtain around their faces, creating an intimate bubble in the middle of the busy street. She scrambled to sit up, acutely aware of how her rain-soaked blouse clung to her curves and how her portfolio had scattered its contents across the wet pavement. "I'm fine," she managed, though her heart was racing for reasons that had nothing to do with the near-death experience. "Are you okay?" "Those bricks could have killed me," he finished quietly, sitting up slowly. His hand went instinctively to his head, as if checking that it was still attached. "You saved my life." Around them, construction workers shouted apologies and explanations, their supervisor's face pale with the realization of how close they'd come to a catastrophic lawsuit. But Alexander's attention remained fixed on Maya as she gathered her scattered architectural drawings, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. "These are yours." He picked up one of her designs, a revolutionary low-income housing concept that used recycled materials and solar integration. His expression shifted from gratitude to genuine fascination. "This is incredible work." Maya snatched the drawing back, suddenly self-conscious. "It's nothing. Just some ideas I had." "Nothing." Alexander stood, extending his hand to help her up. When their skin touched, Maya felt an electric jolt that had nothing to do with static electricity. "Maya-chan," he read from the header on her portfolio. "You're an architect." It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway, surprised he'd remembered her name from such a brief glance at her work. "What were you doing here?" he asked, and something in his tone made her think the answer mattered more than simple curiosity. Before Maya could respond, Alexander's phone buzzed insistently. His expression darkened as he read the message, and when he looked back at her, there was something different in his eyes, a calculation that sent an unexpected chill down her spine. "I have to go," he said abruptly, pulling out his wallet and extracting a business card. But instead of handing her his own card, he wrote something on the back of it. "Meet me tomorrow, 8 p.m. The address is on the back." Maya stared at the card, confused by the sudden shift in his demeanor. "I don't understand. Why would you?" "Because Maya-chan," Alexander said, his grey eyes holding secrets that made her pulse quicken with equal parts anticipation and unease. "Saving my life was either the best thing that ever happened to you, or the worst mistake you'll ever make." He disappeared into the building before she could ask what he meant, leaving Maya standing in the rain with a business card that felt like it was burning her fingers and a question that would haunt her for the next 24 hours. What did a billionaire want with someone like her? And more importantly, why did his parting words sound less like gratitude and more like a warning? "I'm curious. What do you think Alexander Sterling is really after? Does Maya's heroic act seem like destiny, or is she walking into something dangerous? Let me know your gut feeling in the comments below." Maya spent the rest of that day replaying every moment of her encounter with Alexander Sterling, her mind spinning like a broken record. The interview at Harrison and Associates had been a disaster. She'd arrived soaked, disheveled, and 20 minutes late, her portfolio still damp from the rain. The partners had taken one look at her and practically escorted her to the door before she could even begin her presentation. Now she sat in her cramped studio apartment in Capitol Hill, surrounded by the dreams she'd built on paper but couldn't afford to bring to life. The walls were covered with her architectural sketches, innovative designs for sustainable housing that could revolutionize how low-income families lived. Each drawing represented countless sleepless nights, fueled by instant ramen and the stubborn belief that she could make a difference in a world that seemed determined to keep her on the outside looking in. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from her best friend and roommate, Jasmine Torres, a social worker who understood the daily struggle of trying to help people with a system that seemed designed to work against them. Asterisk. How did the interview go? Please tell me you got it, because rent is due next week, and my clients don't pay me in anything but heartbreak and hope. Asterisk. Maya stared at the message, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. How could she explain that she'd tackled a billionaire, been rejected from yet another firm, and was now holding a mysterious business card that felt like either a golden ticket or a trap? Her laptop chimed with an email notification. Maya's heart sank, expecting another rejection letter, but the sender made her blood run cold. A. Sterling Enterprises. Ms. Chan. Asterisk. I've taken the liberty of researching your background and work. Your designs are remarkable, revolutionary, even. The affordable housing crisis in this city needs innovative minds like yours. Asterisk. Asterisk, however, I believe there are things about today's encounter that require clarification. Things that go beyond a simple rescue. Asterisk. Asterisk. The address I gave you is my private residence. Come alone. Trust me when I say that your decision to attend, or not, will determine the trajectory of your entire future. Asterisk. Asterisk. I don't make empty promises, Maya. But I also don't forget debts, asterisk. A. Sterling, asterisk P.S. Your student loan debt is $127,000. Your rent is 3 months behind. Your mother's medical bills from her cancer treatment are still accruing interest. I can solve all of these problems with a single phone call. The question is, what are you willing to do in return? Asterisk. Maya's hands trembled as she read the email a second time. How did he know about her mother? About her financial situation? The intimate details of her life laid bare by someone she'd met for less than 10 minutes made her skin crawl and her heart race simultaneously. She thought about her mother, Carmen, back in Portland, still recovering from a second round of chemotherapy. The woman who had worked 3 jobs to put Maya through architecture school, who had sacrificed everything so her daughter could chase dreams that seemed increasingly impossible. Carmen didn't know about the mounting bills, about how Maya sent every spare dollar home while living on peanut butter sandwiches and desperate hope. Maya's phone rang, startling her from her spiraling thoughts. Her mother's name appeared on the screen, and Maya's chest tightened with a familiar mixture of love and anxiety. Mija. Carmen's voice was weaker than it used to be, but still carried that warm strength that had sustained Maya through every challenge. How are you, baby? You sound stressed in your texts. I'm fine, Mama. Just busy with work stuff. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. How are you feeling? Are you taking your medications? Don't you worry about me. I'm tougher than old leather, remember? Carmen's laugh dissolved into a cough that made Maya's heart clench. Listen, I got some bills in the mail today from the hospital. I don't understand all these numbers, but don't worry about the bills, Mama. I'm handling everything. Maya Elena Chun, you listen to me. Carmen's voice carried that familiar note of maternal authority that could still make Maya feel like a scolded child. I didn't raise you to carry the world on your shoulders. You have your own life to live, your own dreams to chase. But that was exactly the problem, wasn't it? Maya's dreams felt increasingly selfish when her mother was drowning in medical debt, and Maya couldn't even afford to visit her. Every dollar spent on her portfolio printing, every cent invested in interview outfits and transportation to meetings that led nowhere, it all felt like stealing from her mother's future. After hanging up, Maya walked to her window and stared out at the Seattle skyline. Somewhere in those glittering towers, Alexander Sterling was probably making decisions that affected thousands of lives without a second thought. The same man who now held knowledge about her most vulnerable secrets, who had somehow seen through her carefully constructed facade to the desperate woman beneath. She pulled out his business card again, studying the address he'd written on the back. It was in Medina, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in the area. The kind of place where houses came with their own zip codes and security systems that cost more than Maya made in a year. Maya opened her laptop and did what any rational person would do when faced with a mysterious billionaire's invitation. She researched everything she could find about Alexander Sterling. What she discovered painted a complex picture. On the surface, he was everything the media portrayed. A genius entrepreneur who had revolutionized renewable energy technology, a philanthropist who donated millions to environmental causes, a visionary who claimed he wanted to save the world. But dig deeper, and there were whispers. Business rivals who had mysteriously pulled out of deals at the last minute. Employees who had signed extensive non-disclosure agreements. A pattern of acquiring exactly what he wanted, when he wanted it, through methods that were always legal, but not always transparent. And then there were the women. Beautiful, intelligent women who had been linked to him briefly before disappearing from the social scene entirely. Not dead, Maya noted with relief, but relocated. New jobs in other cities, new lives far from Seattle, all with glowing references and substantial severance packages that came with ironclad silence agreements. Maya's phone buzzed with another text from Jasmine. Asterisk, girl, you're scaring me with your silence. Please tell me you're not doing anything stupid. You know how you get when you're stressed. You make decisions that would make angels weep and devils applaud. Asterisk. Maya almost smiled at that. Jasmine knew her too well, understood the reckless streak that Maya usually kept buried under layers of responsibility and caution. But desperate times called for desperate measures, and Maya Chen had been desperate for a very long time. She looked at the clock, 6:30 p.m. If she was going to make this meeting, she needed to leave soon. The rational part of her brain screamed warnings about strange men with too much money and too much information. But the part of her that had been fighting and scraping for every opportunity, the part that had watched her mother suffer while Maya remained powerless to help, that part was already reaching for her jacket. As she prepared to leave, Maya caught her reflection in the hallway mirror. At 28, she still looked young, but her dark eyes held the weight of someone who had grown up too fast and learned too early that the world didn't owe her anything. Her black hair fell in natural curls that she'd learned to tame for professional settings, and her curves had always drawn attention she wasn't sure she wanted. Tonight, though, she chose her outfit carefully, professional enough to show respect, but simple enough to avoid sending the wrong message. A black dress that was elegant without being suggestive, low heels that would let her run if necessary, and her grandmother's silver cross necklace tucked beneath the neckline like a talisman. Before leaving, Maya sent Jasmine the address where she was going and a message. Asterisk, if you don't hear from me by midnight, call the police. And tell my mama I love her. Asterisk. As she stepped out into the Seattle evening, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking toward a threshold she might never be able to cross back over. Alexander Sterling's words echoed in her mind. Saving my life was either the best thing that ever happened to you, or the worst mistake you'll ever make. Standing at the bus stop, watching the city lights blur through the rain-streaked windows, Maya Chen made a decision that would change everything. She was going to find out which one it was. The question that haunted her as the bus carried her toward Medina wasn't whether she was making a mistake. It was whether she was strong enough to handle whatever truth was waiting for her behind Alexander Sterling's door. The bus ride to Medina felt like a journey between two different worlds. Maya watched as the urban landscape of Seattle gradually gave way to manicured lawns and gates that spoke of wealth beyond her comprehension. By the time she reached her stop, the rain had softened to a gentle mist that clung to her skin like silk. Alexander's address led her to a sprawling modern estate that seemed to float above Lake Washington like something from an architectural magazine. Glass walls offered glimpses of warm light within, and the landscaping was so perfect it looked almost artificial. Maya stood at the imposing gate, her finger hovering over the intercom button, when she noticed something that made her architect's heart skip. The house was one of her designs. Not exactly, but close enough to make her breath catch. The flowing lines, the way the structure seemed to grow from the landscape rather than dominate it, the innovative use of sustainable materials. It was as if someone had taken her senior thesis project and brought it to life with an unlimited budget. You came. Alexander's voice through the intercom made her jump. The gate swung open silently, and Maya found herself walking up a path lit by subtle ground lighting that seemed to anticipate her every step. The front door opened before she could knock, and there he was, Alexander Sterling in his natural habitat. Gone was the business suit from their morning encounter, replaced by dark jeans and a soft grey sweater that made his eyes look like storm clouds. He was more handsome in casual clothes, more human somehow, which made him infinitely more dangerous. Maya, he said her name like he was tasting it. I wasn't entirely certain you'd come. I almost didn't, she admitted, stepping into a foyer that took her breath away. The space soared 3 stories, with a living wall of plants creating a vertical garden that seemed to breathe with life. This house, did you build it from my designs? Alexander's smile was enigmatic as he led her deeper into the house. Among other inspirations, would you like some wine? Coffee? I have an excellent chef who could prepare something if you're hungry. I'm not here for dinner, Maya said, though her stomach betrayed her with a soft growl. She'd been too nervous to eat all day. I'm here for answers, starting with how you know so much about my personal life. Direct. I admire that. Alexander poured 2 glasses of wine anyway, handing her one despite her protest. The truth is, Maya, I've been watching you for much longer than you realize. The wine glass slipped slightly in Maya's grip. Excuse me? 6 months ago, your sustainable housing proposal was submitted to the Sterling Foundation's grant committee. It was remarkable. Revolutionary thinking paired with practical application. Exactly the kind of innovation our world needs. Alexander moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing out at the lake. I wanted to meet the brilliant mind behind those designs. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. That proposal was rejected. I never heard back from your foundation, because I rejected it myself. Alexander turned back to her, his grey eyes intense. Not because the work wasn't exceptional, because it was too exceptional. Ideas that revolutionary, Maya, they need to be handled carefully. What the hell does that mean? Maya set down her untouched wine, her hands clenching into fists. You rejected my proposal because it was too good? I rejected your proposal because I knew that if the wrong people got hold of your designs, they'd find ways to bastardize them. Turn your vision of affordable, sustainable housing into cheaply made profit centers that would house people in glorified boxes. Alexander's voice carried a passion that surprised her. Your work deserves better than that. My work deserves to exist at all. Maya's composure finally cracked. Do you have any idea what it's like to pour your heart and soul into something, only to have people like you decide it's not the right time, or the right fit, or too revolutionary for the real world? People like me? Alexander stepped closer, and Maya caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and subtle that made her pulse quicken despite her anger. Rich people who think they know what's best for everyone else. People who can afford to wait for the perfect moment while the rest of us are drowning in debt and watching our dreams die of neglect. Is that what you think I am? His voice was dangerously quiet. I don't know what you are, Maya shot back. That's the problem. You have me investigated like some kind of criminal. You know intimate details about my life that I've never shared with anyone. And now you're telling me you've been manipulating my career for months? What am I supposed to think? Alexander was quiet for a long moment, studying her face with an intensity that made her feel exposed. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a vulnerability she hadn't expected. When I was 12 years old, my father lost everything in a housing market crash. Overnight, we went from a mansion in Beverly Hills to a one-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood where the sirens never stopped. I watched my mother cry herself to sleep every night, watched my father drink himself into oblivion because he couldn't provide for his family anymore. Maya's anger wavered, caught off guard by the raw honesty in his voice. The apartment we lived in was a shithole, Maya. Mold in the walls, heat that barely worked, neighbors who fought through paper-thin walls every night. But do you know what the worst part was? It didn't have to be that way. The building was owned by a company that made millions cutting corners on low-income housing. They could have built something decent, something that wouldn't slowly poison the people who lived there. But why would they, when poor people can't afford to complain? Alexander moved to a wall covered with framed photographs. Images of housing projects, urban developments, families standing in front of homes that looked like Maya's designs. I've spent the last 15 years building an empire for one purpose: to make sure that what happened to my family never happens to anyone else. Every dollar I've earned, every company I've acquired, every political favor I've called in, it's all been leading to this moment. What moment? Maya asked, though part of her was afraid to hear the answer. The moment when I could offer someone like you the resources to change the world. Alexander turned back to her, and there was something in his eyes that made her heart race. I don't want to own your designs, Maya. I want to fund them. All of them. Starting with a $50 million pilot program to build your sustainable housing communities in 5 major cities. Maya felt the world tilt beneath her feet. 50 million. That's just the beginning. If the pilot program succeeds, and with your designs, I know it will, we're looking at $1 billion initiative over the next decade. Enough to house hundreds of thousands of families in homes that don't just shelter them, but empower them. Why me? Maya whispered. There are established firms, famous architects with proven track records. Because they're part of the system that created the problem in the first place. Alexander stepped closer, and Maya could see flecks of gold in his grey eyes. Because you understand what it means to struggle, to fight for every opportunity. Because your designs don't just create buildings, they create hope. Maya's mind reeled with the implications. Everything she'd dreamed of, everything she'd worked toward, being offered to her on a silver platter by a man who was either her guardian angel or the devil in disguise. What's the catch? She asked, because there was always a catch. Alexander's smile was both tender and predatory. The catch, Maya, is that this isn't just a business proposition. It's a partnership. Complete partnership. Your brilliance, my resources, our shared vision, but it requires absolute trust. Absolute commitment. I don't understand. I'm not just offering to fund your work, Alexander said, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper. I'm offering to make you the most powerful woman in sustainable development. To put your name on buildings across the globe. To give you the platform to change millions of lives. He reached out and touched her cheek, his thumb tracing along her jawline. Maya knew she should step away, knew that the electricity sparking between them was dangerous territory, but she found herself frozen by the intensity of his gaze. But power like that comes with risks, Maya. There are people who profit from the current system, who won't appreciate what we're trying to build. Partnering with me means accepting that you'll never be able to go back to your old life. It means trusting me completely, even when I can't explain everything to you immediately. You're scaring me, Maya whispered, though she didn't pull away from his touch. Good, Alexander murmured. You should be scared. What I'm offering you is extraordinary, but extraordinary opportunities always come with extraordinary consequences. His phone buzzed insistently, breaking the spell between them. Alexander's expression darkened as he read the message, and Maya saw something flash across his face. Anger, frustration, maybe even fear. I have to take care of something, he said abruptly, the intimate moment shattering like glass. But Maya, I need an answer from you tonight. Not tomorrow, not next week. Tonight. You're asking me to change my entire life based on one conversation. I'm asking you to trust me based on the fact that I'm the only person who's ever been willing to bet everything on your talent. Alexander's voice was urgent now, almost desperate. Look around you, Maya. This house, built from your vision. Those photos on the wall. Families living in communities designed with your principles. I didn't build an empire to impress people at cocktail parties. I built it to find you. Maya's head spun with the magnitude of what he was offering. $50 million. Her designs brought to life. The chance to help thousands of families. But also secrets, danger, and a partnership with a man who made her feel things she wasn't sure she was ready to feel. How do I know you're telling me the truth? She asked. Alexander pulled out his phone and made a call. Sarah, it's Alexander. I need you to transfer the funds we discussed. Yes, all of it. Immediately. He hung up and turned back to Maya. Check your mother's hospital account in 10 minutes. Her medical bills have been paid in full. Maya's breath caught. You can't just. I already have. Alexander's eyes burned with an intensity that made her knees weak. This is who I am, Maya. When I want something, I don't wait. When I see something that needs to be fixed, I fix it. When I meet someone who could change the world, I make sure they have every resource they need to do it. And what do you want from me in return? Alexander stepped so close that Maya could feel the heat radiating from his body. Everything, he whispered. Your trust, your talent, your partnership, and eventually, if I'm very lucky, your heart. Before Maya could respond, the lights in the house suddenly went out, plunging them into darkness. In the distance, Maya heard the sound of car doors slamming and footsteps on gravel. Maya, Alexander's voice was deadly serious now, all traces of seduction gone. I need you to listen to me very carefully. What happens in the next few minutes is going to determine whether you walk out of here as the most powerful woman in sustainable development, or whether you never get the chance to change a single life. In the darkness, Maya heard the front door explode inward, and men's voices shouting commands she couldn't understand. Alexander's hand found hers in the blackness, his grip strong and reassuring. "Do you trust me?" he whispered urgently. Maya Chin had 30 seconds to make a decision that would either save her dreams or destroy her life completely. As armed figures stormed through Alexander Sterling's house, she realized that the man who had promised to change her world might be the one person who could protect her from it. "Yes," she whispered back, not entirely sure if she was making the best decision of her life or the last decision she'd ever make. "What do you think is really happening here? Is Alexander Sterling Maya's savior, or is she walking into something much more dangerous than she realizes? Drop your theories in the comments. I have a feeling you're going to be shocked by what comes next." Alexander's hand tightened around Maya's as he pulled her swiftly through the darkened house. The sounds of the intruders grew closer. Heavy boots on marble floors, sharp commands barked in what sounded like Russian. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as Alexander led her through a hidden panel behind his kitchen, revealing a passage she never would have noticed. "Safe room," he whispered against her ear, his breath warm on her neck. Bulletproof, soundproof, and completely invisible from the outside. The space was larger than Maya had expected, more like a luxurious studio apartment than a panic room. Soft lighting automatically illuminated the area, revealing a wall of monitors showing security feeds from around the property. Maya watched in horror as dark-clad figures systematically searched the house, their movements professional and coordinated. "Who are they?" Maya whispered, though part of her wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Alexander was already at a computer terminal, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "People who don't want to see affordable housing become a reality," he said grimly. "People who make billions keeping the poor desperate and the wealthy comfortable." On the monitors, Maya could see the intruders finding nothing but empty rooms. Their leader, a tall man with silver hair and cold eyes, was speaking into a radio, his frustration evident even through the silent feed. "Viktor Petrov," Alexander said, noticing her stare. "He represents a consortium of real estate developers, construction companies, and investment firms that profit from the housing crisis. They've made their fortunes building substandard housing and charging premium prices because people have no other options. And they know about our meeting tonight?" Alexander's jaw tightened. "They know about everything, Maya. They've been watching you as long as I have, but for very different reasons. Your designs threaten to destroy their entire business model." Maya sank into a chair, the weight of the situation crushing down on her. "This is insane. I'm an architect, not some international spy. I just want to build houses that don't fall apart or poison the people living in them. Which makes you more dangerous to them than any spy." Alexander turned from the monitors to face her fully. "Maya, these people have killed to protect smaller profits than what you could cost them. The moment you walked into my house tonight, you became a target." The monitors showed the intruders regrouping in Alexander's living room. Viktor Petrov was examining the framed photographs of housing projects, his expression growing darker with each image. "They're going to destroy everything," Maya realized, watching one of the men pour gasoline from a container she hadn't noticed before. "The house, yes, but not the important things." Alexander pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. "Your mother's medical bills paid. Your student loans forgiven. And this." He opened another app, revealing a bank account with Maya's name and a balance that made her vision blur. $5 million. Yours, regardless of what you decide tonight." "Stop," Maya said, standing abruptly. "Just stop. You can't keep throwing money at me like it's the solution to everything." "Can't I?" Alexander's voice carried an edge of desperation she hadn't heard before. "Maya, in 10 minutes, those men are going to burn this house to the ground. In 10 hours, they're going to make sure every architectural firm in the city knows that hiring you comes with consequences. In 10 days, they'll probably arrange for you to have an accident that ensures your revolutionary designs never see the light of day." Maya felt ice forming in her veins. "You're trying to scare me into." "I'm trying to save your life." Alexander's composure finally cracked, and Maya saw the raw fear beneath his controlled exterior. Do you think this is the first time I've tried to change the system? Do you know how many brilliant minds have been silenced before they could make a difference? He moved to another section of the safe room, revealing a wall covered with photographs and documents. Maya recognized some of the faces, architects and urban planners she'd studied in school, people whose promising careers had ended abruptly in mysterious accidents or sudden career changes. Sarah Martinez. Alexander pointed to a photograph of a beautiful Latina woman. Designed the most innovative low-income housing project in Los Angeles history. Car accident, 3 days before the project was approved. Elena Kozlov revolutionized modular construction techniques that could have housed thousands. Sudden nervous breakdown, spent 6 months in a private facility, came out with no memory of her work. Marcus Thompson. Stop. Maya's voice was barely a whisper. Please stop. Alexander's expression softened as he saw the horror in her eyes. I'm not trying to terrify you, Maya. I'm trying to make you understand why I've spent so much time and energy creating the infrastructure to protect you. Why this safe room exists. Why I have security protocols most governments would envy. Why I can pay off your debts with a phone call. You're saying I can never have a normal life again. I'm saying you were never going to have a normal life anyway. Alexander stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. Your talent is too exceptional, your vision too threatening to the status quo. The only question is whether you face that reality with my protection and resources, or alone and defenseless. Maya looked at the monitors again. The intruders were setting charges now, preparing to destroy not just the house, but any evidence of their meeting. She thought about her mother, safely asleep in Portland with her medical bills mysteriously paid. She thought about Jasmine, probably pacing their apartment and checking her phone every 5 minutes. She thought about all the families who could benefit from her designs if she was brave enough to see this through. What exactly are you proposing? She asked quietly. Alexander's relief was palpable. A partnership, in every sense of the word. You design the communities, I provide the funding and protection. We build a network of sustainable housing projects that can't be stopped because they're too big, too public, too supported by the right people. And personally, Alexander was quiet for a long moment, studying her face in the soft light of the safe room. Personally, Maya, I'm hoping that somewhere between changing the world and dodging assassins, you might find time to fall in love with me. Despite everything, the danger, the fear, the surreal nature of the entire evening, Maya felt a laugh bubble up from somewhere deep in her chest. You're completely insane. Probably, Alexander admitted with a smile that transformed his entire face. But I'm insane with unlimited resources and a really good security team. Maya found herself smiling back, and suddenly the space between them felt charged with something more than adrenaline. Alexander reached out and tucked a curl behind her ear, his touch sending shivers down her spine. Maya, he said softly, I need you to know that everything I've told you tonight is true. But I also need you to know that my feelings for you, they're not part of some elaborate business strategy. From the moment I saw your designs, before I ever met you, I knew you were going to change my life. How could you possibly know that? Because your work has soul, Alexander said simply. In a world full of people who build things to impress other people, you design spaces that heal people. That's not just talent, Maya. That's magic. Before Maya could respond, alarms began blaring from the monitors. The charges had been set, and Viktor Petrov's team was evacuating the house. Alexander immediately began typing commands into his computer. What are you doing? Making sure they think we're dead, Alexander said grimly. The charges they've set will bring down the main structure, but this safe room is built to survive a direct missile strike. In about 3 minutes, Viktor Petrov is going to believe that Alexander Sterling and Maya Chun died in a tragic explosion. Maya's blood ran cold. But what about our lives? Our families? I can't just disappear. You won't disappear, Alexander assured her, still working at the computer. But Maya Chun, struggling architect from Seattle, will die tonight. What emerges from those ashes will be someone much more powerful. Someone who can't be intimidated or eliminated because she's too visible, too protected, too essential to too many important people. I don't understand. Alexander turned to her, his grey eyes burning with intensity. Tomorrow morning, the world is going to learn about the Sterlington Foundation, a billion-dollar initiative to revolutionize affordable housing globally. Maya Chen won't be an unknown architect begging for scraps anymore. She'll be the co-founder of the most important housing development organization in the world. Maya felt her knees go weak. Co-founder? Equal partners in everything, Maya. 50-50 split on all decisions, all profits, all credit. Your name on every building, your vision driving every project. Alexander's voice dropped to an intimate whisper. And if you'll have me, your heart partnered with mine in everything we build together. The house shook as the first charges detonated. Maya instinctively moved closer to Alexander, who wrapped his arms around her protectively. In the space of their embrace, surrounded by the sound of destruction above them, Maya felt something shift inside her chest. "This is crazy," she whispered against his shoulder. "The best things usually are," Alexander replied, his lips brushing her hair. Maya pulled back to look at him, studying the face that had already become precious to her in ways she didn't fully understand. "If I say yes, if I become your partner in this, there's no going back." "No going back," Alexander confirmed. "But Maya, think about what we could accomplish together. Think about the families we could house, the communities we could transform, the world we could help heal." Maya thought about her mother, about Jasmine, about all the nights she'd fallen asleep sketching designs for homes that seemed too good to ever exist. She thought about the families in those photographs on Alexander's wall, living in communities built with love and hope instead of greed and corner-cutting. "Partners," she said firmly. "In everything." Alexander's smile was radiant. "In everything." He leaned down and kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Maya felt her heart explode with possibilities, professional, personal, and everything in between. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Maya realized that she had never felt more alive or more terrified in her entire life. The final charges detonated above them, and Maya Chen, struggling architect, officially died in a mansion fire in Medina, Washington. What rose from those ashes was something much more dangerous to the people who profited from desperation. A woman with unlimited resources, uncompromising vision, and a partner who would burn down the world to protect her dreams. As the Safe Room's communication systems came online, connecting them to Alexander's global network of allies and resources, Maya realized that she was no longer fighting for her dreams alone. She had found someone who believed in her vision enough to bet everything on it, including his heart. The war for affordable housing was about to begin, and Maya Chen Sterling was ready to lead the charge. 3 hours after the explosion that officially ended their old lives, Maya found herself in a private jet 30,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean, watching the sunrise paint the clouds in shades of gold and pink. Alexander sat across from her, speaking in rapid, clipped tones to someone on his encrypted phone. The third such call since they'd left the underground tunnel system that connected his safe room to a private airfield. "No, I don't care what the insurance investigators find," Alexander was saying. "The story is simple. Gas leak, tragic accident, 2 bodies too charred to identify. Victor's people will want to confirm the deaths, so make sure the dental records match. Yes, I have backups of everything important." Maya stared out the window, trying to process the surreal turn her life had taken. 12 hours ago, she'd been scrambling to afford rent. Now she was supposedly dead, flying to a destination Alexander hadn't yet revealed, with a new identity and enough money to fund her wildest architectural dreams. "Where are we going?" she asked when Alexander finally ended his call. "Malta," he replied, pouring himself a scotch from the jet's bar. "I have a compound there that's completely off the grid. We need a place to plan our next moves without Victor's people tracking us. And how long are we supposed to stay dead?" Alexander's expression grew serious. "That depends on how quickly we can build enough public support to make killing us counterproductive. The Sterlington Foundation announcement will go live in 72 hours. By then, we need to have the backing of enough powerful people that eliminating us would cause more problems than it solves. Maya accepted the glass of wine he offered her, though her hands were still shaking slightly from the adrenaline. You've done this before, haven't you? Faked your death, I mean. Once, Alexander admitted. When I was 25 and stupid enough to think I could take on the construction lobby alone. I spent 8 months in hiding before I realized that the only way to beat the system was to become too big for it to ignore. What happened during those 8 months? Alexander was quiet for a long moment, staring into his drink. I learned that isolation is a special kind of hell. I had all the money in the world, all the resources I could want, but I was completely alone. No friends, no family, no one who knew the real me. Just Alexander Sterling, the public persona, and the empty shell of a man underneath. Maya heard something in his voice that made her heart clench. Is that why you need a partner this time? Someone to share the isolation with? Partly, Alexander said honestly. But Maya, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about having company during the difficult parts. I genuinely believe that what we could accomplish together is exponentially greater than what either of us could achieve alone. And the other part? The personal part. Alexander set down his drink and moved to sit beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne and feel the warmth radiating from his body. The personal part is that from the moment I saw your designs, I knew I'd found someone who understands what I'm trying to build. Not just the buildings, Maya, the world. A place where having money doesn't determine whether you deserve a decent home, where architectural beauty isn't reserved for the wealthy. Maya found herself leaning into his warmth, exhaustion and adrenaline making her guards lower than they should be. How do I know you're not just telling me what I want to hear? How do I know this isn't all some elaborate manipulation? Alexander pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. Because of this, Maya looked at the banking app, showing the Sterlington Foundation account. The balance made her gasp. $1.2 billion, with her name listed as the primary account holder. You have complete control over every penny, Alexander said quietly. If you decided right now that you never wanted to see me again, you could take that money and build your housing communities without me. I'd never fight you for it, never try to stop you. Maya struggled to find words. That's the most expensive gesture of trust in human history. It's not a gesture, Maya. It's the truth. I meant what I said about being equal partners. You're not my employee or my protege. You're my partner in every sense that matters. Maya stared at the phone screen, her mind reeling. With that kind of money, she could revolutionize affordable housing across the globe. She could build communities that would house millions of families, create jobs, transform entire cities. There's something else, Alexander said, his voice carrying a note of vulnerability that made her look up at him. Something I should have told you before we got on this plane. Maya's stomach dropped. What? Alexander stood and walked to his briefcase, retrieving a thick folder. 6 months ago, when your grant application landed on my desk, I didn't just review your architectural work. I had you investigated thoroughly. You already told me that. No, Maya. I told you I knew about your debts and your mother's medical bills. But the investigation went much deeper than that. Alexander sat back down, the folder heavy in his hands. I know about your father. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. My father is dead. Diego Vasquez is very much alive, Alexander said gently. He's been in federal prison for the last 15 years, serving a sentence for money laundering and racketeering. He was a key figure in a construction fraud scheme that bilked investors out of hundreds of millions of dollars. Maya shot to her feet, her wine glass falling to the carpet. You're lying. I wish I was. Alexander opened the folder, revealing photographs and documents. Your mother never told you the truth because she was trying to protect you. Diego didn't abandon you when you were 5. He was arrested. Carmen changed your last name to hers and moved across the country to make sure his crimes couldn't touch your future. Maya stared at the documents with growing horror. There was her father's mugshot, older than she remembered him, but unmistakably the man who used to read her bedtime stories and teach her to draw buildings with blocks. The housing projects that failed, the families that lost their homes. Diego was one of the men responsible for cutting the corners that made those buildings uninhabitable. Alexander's voice was careful, measured. Maya, your passion for quality affordable housing, it's not just altruism, it's atonement. Maya felt like she was drowning. How long have you known? From the beginning. It's actually what convinced me that you were the right partner for this work. Anyone can have good intentions, Maya, but you have something more. You have a need to heal the wounds your father's crimes created. So this whole thing is about my father? You chose me because of his sins. Maya's voice was rising, hysteria creeping in around the edges. I chose you because of your talent, Alexander said firmly, standing to face her. But your father's story explains why your work has such emotional depth, why you design homes that heal instead of just shelter. Diego's crimes gave you a unique understanding of what happens when construction becomes purely about profit. Maya felt tears burning her eyes. All those families in the photos on your wall, are they living in buildings that replaced ones my father helped destroy? Some of them, yes. Maya sank into her seat, the weight of this revelation crushing her. Oh God, no wonder Viktor Petrov's people know so much about me. I'm not just threatening their business model. I'm the daughter of one of their own who went rogue. Maya, don't. She held up a hand to stop him. Just, don't say anything for a minute. Maya closed her eyes and tried to process everything. Her entire identity had been built on a lie. Her mother had spent decades protecting her from a truth that explained so much about Maya's driving need to create homes that didn't hurt the people living in them. And Alexander, the man she was falling in love with, had known all along. The compound in Malta, she said finally, her voice hollow. It's not just a safe house, is it? It's where you've been planning this confrontation with my father's old associates. Alexander nodded grimly. Viktor Petrov was Diego's business partner. When your father was arrested, Viktor took over his operations and expanded them globally. He's been waiting 15 years for Diego's daughter to emerge as a threat. And you've been preparing for this confrontation just as long. Yes. Maya opened her eyes and looked at Alexander, really looked at him. The careful way he held himself, the strategic thinking behind every gesture, the resources that seemed almost unlimited. Who are you really, Alexander? And don't give me the public biography. Who are you really? Alexander was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of secrets that had been buried for years. My name is Alexander Sterling, and I am a billionaire who made his fortune in renewable energy, he said slowly. But I'm also the son of Michael Sterling, the FBI agent who built the case that sent your father to prison. Maya felt the world tilt around her. What? My father spent 3 years infiltrating Diego's organization. He watched the buildings go up, watched the corners get cut, watched families move into homes that were already starting to fall apart. He knew that people would get sick, that children would develop respiratory problems, that elderly residents would die from exposure when the heating systems failed. Alexander's voice grew heavy with old pain. The night before Diego's arrest, one of those buildings collapsed. 23 people died, including a family with 3 young children. My father never forgave himself for not moving faster, for not preventing those deaths. He did his job, Maya whispered. He solved the case, yes, but he never recovered from the guilt. He spent the rest of his life, all 8 years of it, trying to find ways to undo the damage Diego's organization had caused. When he died, he left me his files, his contacts, and his mission. Maya stared at Alexander, seeing him clearly for the first time. You're not just trying to revolutionize affordable housing. You're trying to finish your father's work. Yes. And Maya, whether you stay with me or not, whether you forgive me for keeping this from you or not, you're the key to completing that mission. You're the one person who can create homes that heal instead of harm, who can show the world what affordable housing should look like. Maya felt something shift inside her chest, a strange combination of betrayal and understanding, anger and admiration. We're both trying to atone for our father's choices. It would seem so. Maya stood and walked to the jet's window, looking out at the ocean below. Everything made sense now. Alexander's resources, his knowledge of her personal life, his passionate commitment to her work. They weren't just partners. They were two people bound together by the complicated legacy of their father's intertwined story. "There's something you need to know," she said without turning around. "When I was designing those housing projects, when I was obsessing over every detail to make sure they were perfect, I kept having these dreams about families living in buildings that were falling apart. I thought it was just my imagination, but it was genetic memory," Alexander finished softly. "Some part of you remembers your father's stories about the buildings he was helping create." Maya turned back to face him, and Alexander saw that her tears had stopped. In their place was something harder, more determined. "Viktor Petrov isn't just coming after me because my designs threaten his business model. He's coming after me because I represent everything Diego should have been but wasn't. Yes, and if we're going to beat him, we need to do more than just build better buildings. We need to expose the entire network that's been profiting from substandard housing for decades." Alexander's smile was fierce and proud. "Now you're thinking like a sterling." Maya walked back to him, stopping close enough to see the flecks of gold in his grey eyes. "Partners," she said firmly. "In atonement, in justice, and in love." "In everything," Alexander agreed, leaning down to kiss her. As the jet carried them toward Malta and the confrontation that would determine the future of affordable housing around the world, Maya Chen felt the last pieces of her identity click into place. She wasn't just an architect anymore. She was a woman with a mission, a partner with unlimited resources, and a love worth fighting for. The war with Viktor Petrov was about to begin, and Maya was ready to show him what Diego Vasquez's daughter could accomplish when she had the right partner by her side. "Everything we thought we knew just got turned upside down. What do you think about the connection between Maya and Alexander's fathers? Are you team, this is destiny, or team, this is too much of a coincidence? Let me know in the comments, because the stakes are about to get even higher." The Mediterranean sun was setting over Malta's ancient limestone cliffs when Maya's world fell apart for the second time in 48 hours. She and Alexander had spent the day in his compound, a fortress-like villa built into the hillside, planning their public emergence and the launch of the Sterlington Foundation. Maya had been sketching designs for their first housing project when Alexander's head of security, a steel-eyed woman named Catherine, burst into the room with news that made Maya's blood freeze. "They have her," Catherine said without preamble. "Victor's people took Carmen Chen from the hospital in Portland 6 hours ago." Maya's pencil clattered to the floor. "That's impossible. My mother is in protective custody." "You said." "Someone on the inside gave them her location," Alexander said grimly, already reaching for his encrypted phone. "Catherine, what do we know?" "Video message arrived 20 minutes ago." Catherine handed Alexander a tablet, her expression grim. "You're not going to like it." Alexander's face went ashen as he watched the video. Maya snatched the tablet from his hands, and what she saw made her knees buckle. Her mother, pale and weak from her recent chemotherapy, was sitting in what looked like a warehouse, her hands zip-tied behind a chair. She was trying to look brave, but Maya could see the terror in her dark eyes. Viktor Petrov stepped into frame, his silver hair immaculate despite the industrial setting. "Ms. Chun," he said in accented English, "I trust you're enjoying your resurrection. Your mother is quite charming, by the way. She's been telling me all about your childhood, how proud she is of your architectural work." Carmen lifted her chin defiantly. "Mija, don't you listen to this man. Don't you give him anything." Viktor backhanded her casually, and Maya screamed as her mother's head snapped to the side. "As I was saying," Viktor continued as if nothing had happened, "Carmen has been very informative. She's also very fragile. Cancer treatment is so hard on the body, isn't it?" "I'll kill him," Maya whispered, her hands shaking with rage. "I'll fucking kill him." "Maya, listen to me," Alexander said urgently, but she was already moving toward the door. "No. This is my mother, Alexander. My mother who's been through hell with cancer, who sacrificed everything for me, and now she's being tortured because I was stupid enough to think I could change the world. If you go after her alone, you'll both die," Alexander said firmly, catching her arm. Maya, I know you're terrified, but we have to be smart about this. Maya spun to face him, and Alexander saw something in her eyes that made him step back. Smart? Smart was staying in my shitty apartment and designing buildings for people who would never build them. Smart was not getting involved with a billionaire with daddy issues and a god complex. Maya. No. Her voice cracked with anguish. You want to know what Victor's message says? It says I have 24 hours to turn over all the Sterlington Foundation assets and disappear forever, or he starts cutting pieces off my mother and mailing them to architectural firms around the world as a warning. Alexander felt his heart shatter at the pain in her voice. We'll get her back. I have resources, connections. Your resources got her kidnapped in the first place. Maya was pacing now, her hands pulling at her hair. If I hadn't met you, if I hadn't gotten involved in your crusade for justice, she'd be safe in her hospital bed complaining about the food and flirting with the nurses. Maya, please. I'm done, Alexander. Maya's voice went deadly quiet. I'm transferring the foundation money back to you, and I'm going to give Victor exactly what he wants. Which is me. He doesn't really want the money. He wants Diego Vasquez's daughter to disappear, so she can never threaten his empire. Maya moved to the computer terminal. So that's what I'm going to do. Maya Chen is going to vanish forever, and Carmen gets to live. Alexander watched in horror as Maya began typing commands to transfer the foundation assets. You can't do this. Think about all the families we could help, all the communities we could transform. Fuck the communities. Maya whirled on him, tears streaming down her face. I don't care about changing the world anymore, Alexander. I care about my mother. She's the only family I have left, and I'm not going to let her die for my dreams. Your father would be proud of you, Alexander said quietly. Maya went very still. What did you say? Diego Vasquez spent 15 years in prison thinking about the families his actions hurt. When I visited him last month. You visited my father? Maya's voice was barely a whisper. Alexander nodded, knowing he was about to destroy whatever was left of their relationship. I needed to understand him, to understand you. Maya, he's been following your career from prison. Every article about young architects, every design competition you entered. He has clippings of everything. Stop talking. He told me that his greatest regret wasn't getting caught or going to prison. His greatest regret was that his daughter would grow up thinking he abandoned her instead of knowing that he was trying to protect her from the consequences of his choices. Maya's hands were shaking as she deleted her access codes from the foundation account. I said stop talking. He said he hoped that someday you'd find a way to build the homes he should have built, to help the families he hurt. Alexander's voice broke. Maya, giving up now doesn't honor your mother's sacrifice. It dishonors everything she raised you to become. Maya slammed her hands on the desk, her composure finally shattering completely. Don't you dare talk to me about honor. You've been manipulating me from the beginning. The grant rejection, the investigation, the convenient rescue from the falling bricks. How much of it was real, Alexander? How much of our entire relationship was just you playing out some twisted father-son drama? Alexander felt like she'd stabbed him through the heart. My feelings for you are real, Maya. Everything between us. Everything between us is built on lies. Maya's voice was hollow now, all the fight gone out of her. You never saw me as a partner, Alexander. You saw me as the daughter of your father's case, the missing piece of his legacy. Well, congratulations. You found Diego Vasquez's daughter, and she's exactly as weak and selfish as he was. That's not true, isn't it? Maya turned back to the computer. I'm about to abandon every family that could have benefited from our work because I can't bear to lose the one person who matters more to me than my principles. How is that different from what my father did? Alexander stepped closer, desperate to reach her. Because your father chose money over people. You're choosing love over everything else. That's not weakness, Maya. That's humanity. It's failure. Maya finished transferring the assets and closed the laptop. And I can live with being a failure if it means my mother gets to live. Catherine cleared her throat from the doorway. Ma'am, there's been a development. Maya looked up with hollow eyes. What now? Victor sent another message. He's not just holding your mother, he is Jasmine Torres as well. Maya felt the last piece of her heart break apart. Jasmine? How did they even know about Jasmine? They've been watching everyone close to you, Alexander said grimly. Maya, this changes everything. Victor isn't planning to honor any deal you make with him. He's going to kill them both regardless, because dead hostages can't testify about what they've seen. Then I'll kill him first. Maya's voice was eerily calm now. Catherine, I need weapons. Lots of them. Maya, no. Don't. Maya held up a hand to stop Alexander. You've manipulated me for the last time. From now on, I make my own choices, and I live with my own consequences. She walked to the window, looking out at the Mediterranean sunset. You want to know the really tragic part, Alexander? For about 12 hours, I actually believed we could change the world together. I believed that love and good intentions could triumph over greed and corruption. I believed that maybe, just maybe, I'd found someone who saw me as more than just a means to an end. Maya, please. But you know what I've learned? The system doesn't get defeated by people like us. It gets stronger by consuming people like us. Viktor Petrov isn't afraid of our housing projects or our foundation. He's afraid that other people might start believing change is possible. So he's going to make an example of us. Maya turned back to face Alexander, and he saw that something fundamental had shifted in her eyes. The hope, the determination, the love, it was all gone, replaced by something cold and final. I'm going to Malta's airport, she said quietly. I'm going to get on a plane to wherever Victor wants to meet. I'm going to give him everything he wants, and then I'm going to try to save the two people who actually matter to me. And Alexander, yes, I never want to see you again. When this is over, when my mother and Jasmine are safe, I want you to forget Maya Chen ever existed. Find another architect, another partner, another woman to help you work through your daddy issues. But leave me out of it. Alexander felt like he was watching Maya die all over again, except this time it was real and permanent and entirely his fault. Maya, I love you. No, you don't. Maya picked up her jacket and headed for the door. You love the idea of me. You love what I represent in your father's story. But you don't love me because you never actually knew me. That's not true. Maya paused in the doorway, not looking back. If you really loved me, Alexander, you would have trusted me with the truth from the beginning. Instead, you made me a character in your story instead of the author of my own. And then she was gone, leaving Alexander alone with the ruins of everything they'd built together, and the terrible knowledge that the woman he loved was walking into a trap that would almost certainly kill her. Catherine approached him carefully. Sir, what are your orders? Alexander stared at the door Maya had walked through, his heart breaking with every breath. Prep the helicopter, he said finally. And Catherine? Yes, sir? If Maya Chen dies because of my choices, I want you to make sure Viktor Petrov follows her into hell. Understood, sir. As Alexander prepared to mount a rescue mission for the woman who never wanted to see him again, he realized that his father's legacy had claimed another victim. The only person Alexander had ever truly loved, and the only chance he'd ever had at redemption. Maya Chen was flying toward what would almost certainly be her death, and it was entirely Alexander Sterling's fault. Maya's hands were steady as she piloted the small chartered plane through the night sky toward Sicily, where Victor had specified their meeting would take place. She'd left Alexander's compound 6 hours ago, and in that time, she'd done something that surprised even her. She'd stopped running from who she really was. The revelation about her father, about Alexander's father, about the web of lies and manipulation that had brought them together, it had initially broken her. But somewhere over the Mediterranean, as she'd flown alone through the darkness, Maya had realized something crucial. She wasn't Diego Vasquez's daughter anymore. She wasn't Maya Chen, the struggling architect. She wasn't even Maya Chen, Alexander Sterling's manipulated partner. She was something entirely new. The earpiece she wore crackled to life, interrupting her thoughts. Maya, please respond. Alexander's voice was rough with exhaustion and desperation. I know you don't want to hear from me, but you need to know what we've discovered. Maya had been ignoring his calls for hours, but something in his tone made her finally answer. I told you I never wanted to see you again. And I'm respecting that, Alexander said quickly. After tonight, I'll disappear from your life completely. But Maya, before you walk into Victor's trap, you need to know the truth about your mother's kidnapping. The truth? You mean there's something you haven't lied to me about yet? Carmen wasn't taken from the hospital, Alexander said, his voice heavy with guilt. She was never in protective custody. Maya, your mother contacted Victor herself. Maya felt her blood freeze. What are you talking about? Catherine traced the communications. 3 days ago, Carmen Chen called Victor Petrov's organization and offered to turn herself over in exchange for a guarantee that you'd be left alone. The plane shuddered slightly as Maya's hands tightened on the controls. That's impossible. She knew Maya. Somehow, she figured out that you were in danger, and she decided to sacrifice herself to protect you. The video you saw, Victor wasn't lying when he said she'd been telling him about your childhood. But she wasn't being tortured for information. She was trying to convince him that you weren't a threat, that you'd give up your work if he'd just leave you alone. Maya closed her eyes, her mother's voice echoing in her memory. I didn't raise you to carry the world on your shoulders. And Jasmine was never taken. She's safe in Seattle, but Victor's people made her believe you were dead in the explosion. She's been grieving for you for 2 days. Maya felt something crack open in her chest. Not heartbreak this time, but fury. Pure, clean, righteous fury. So Victor has been playing psychological warfare from the beginning. Yes, he knew that the only way to stop you was to make you stop yourself. Physical threats wouldn't work. You're too brave, too stubborn. But threaten the people you love, and I'd tear down everything I built to save them. Maya's voice was deadly quiet. That bastard played me perfectly. Maya, where are you right now? Maya looked at her instruments. 20 minutes out from the coordinates Victor gave me. A private airfield in Sicily. Don't land. Please, Maya, don't land. It's a trap within a trap. Even if you give him everything he wants, he's not going to let you or your mother leave alive. Maya was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke, Alexander heard something in her voice that made his heart race with equal parts hope and terror. Alexander, do you remember what you said about your father never forgiving himself for not moving fast enough? Yes. And do you remember what I said about designing homes that heal instead of harm? Maya, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that maybe it's time to stop playing defense. Maya's voice carried a cold determination that Alexander had never heard before. Victor Petrov has built his empire by making people afraid. Afraid to fight back, afraid to hope for something better, afraid to believe change is possible. But you know what? What? I'm Diego Vasquez's daughter, and I'm done being afraid. Alexander felt his heart pound with sudden hope. Maya, here's what's going to happen, Maya continued, her voice gaining strength with every word. I'm going to land this plane, and I'm going to walk into Victor's meeting. But I'm not going there to surrender, Alexander. I'm going there to end this. How? By giving Victor exactly what he's always wanted. A confrontation with Diego Vasquez's legacy. But not the broken, ashamed legacy he's expecting. The real legacy. The one where Diego's daughter doesn't just atone for his sins, she destroys the entire system that made those sins profitable. Alexander felt a chill run down his spine. Maya, what are you planning? I'm planning to be the architect my father should have been. Not just of buildings, Alexander, but of justice. Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. And I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to trust me the way you should have from the beginning. No manipulation, no hidden agendas, no protection I didn't ask for. Can you do that? Alexander closed his eyes, feeling the weight of all his mistakes crushing down on him. Yes. Good. Because in about 15 minutes, I'm going to send you coordinates. When I do, I need you to contact every journalist, every government official, every environmental group on your contact list. Tell them that the Sterlington Foundation is about to expose the largest construction fraud conspiracy in European history. Maya, and Alexander? When this is over, when Victor Petrov and his entire network are in prison, and every family they've hurt has been compensated, I want you to know that despite everything you did wrong, despite all the lies and manipulation, you gave me something invaluable. What's that? You gave me the resources to become who I was always meant to be. Maya's voice softened for just a moment. And you loved me enough to let me make my own choices, even when you knew those choices might get me killed. Maya, I have to go now. Victor's people are lighting up the runway. Maya took a deep breath. Alexander, if something happens to me tonight, nothing's going to happen to you. If something happens to me, Maya continued firmly, I want you to know that these have been the most extraordinary 3 days of my life. Not because of the money or the foundation or the chance to change the world. Because for 3 days, I got to be Maya Chun Sterling, equal partner to the most brilliant, infuriating, wonderful man I've ever known. Alexander felt tears burning his eyes. Maya, I love you, Alexander Sterling. Not the version of you that tried to protect me from the truth, and not the version that saw me as part of your father's story. I love the version of you that was brave enough to bet everything on a dream, and stupid enough to think you could save the world with good intentions and unlimited resources. Maya, please don't do this alone. I'm not alone, Maya said softly. I have my mother's courage, my father's determination to make amends, your resources, and my own vision of what the world could be. That's more than enough to take down one corrupt businessman and his network of cronies. The line went quiet for a moment, and Alexander could hear the sound of landing gear extending. Maya, yes. When this is over, when Victor is finished and your mother is safe and the world knows the truth about everything, will you give me a chance to earn your trust again? Not as Alexander Sterling, the billionaire with a mission, but as Alexander, the man who loves you more than his own life. Maya was quiet for so long that Alexander thought she'd ended the call. When she finally spoke, her voice was warm with something that sounded almost like hope. Ask me again when you've proven you can love Maya Chun without trying to save her. And then the line went dead, leaving Alexander alone with his fear and his love, and the terrible knowledge that the woman he adored was about to walk into the most dangerous confrontation of her life. But for the first time since this nightmare began, Alexander felt something that surprised him. Hope. Not hope that he could save Maya, but hope that Maya could save herself. Because the woman on that plane wasn't the struggling architect he'd manipulated, or the vulnerable partner he'd tried to protect. That woman was Maya Chun in her full power, brilliant, determined, and absolutely unstoppable. And Viktor Petrov had no idea what was about to hit him. As Alexander began making the calls that would bring the full weight of international media and law enforcement to Sicily, he realized that Maya had already won the most important victory. She'd stopped being a victim of other people's stories and started being the hero of her own. Now all that remained was to see whether love, justice, and really good architecture could triumph over corruption, greed, and 20 years of systematic oppression. Alexander Sterling had never been more terrified or more proud in his entire life. 2 years later, Maya stood on the balcony of the first completed Sterling Chun community in Detroit, watching children play in the courtyard below while their parents tended gardens that had been built into the architectural design itself. The afternoon sun streamed through the solar glass panels that powered the entire complex, and Maya could hear the sound of laughter echoing off walls that had been engineered to promote both privacy and community connection. The Morrison family just got their keys, Alexander said, stepping out onto the balcony behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. Maria cried when she saw the accessible bathroom we designed for her daughter's wheelchair. Maya leaned back against his chest, feeling the familiar warmth that had sustained them through 2 years of the most challenging and rewarding work of their lives. How many families is that now? Across all our projects? 12,437 families, Alexander said with pride. And the Seattle project breaks ground next month. Maya turned in his arms, studying the face that had become more precious to her with each passing day. Alexander's hair had gotten slightly longer, and there were laugh lines around his eyes that hadn't been there when they'd first met. Success looked good on him, but more than that, happiness looked good on him. The documentary crew wants to interview us again tomorrow, she said, straightening his collar unnecessarily. Something about the human story behind the housing revolution. Do we have to talk about Victor again? Alexander asked with a slight grimace. Viktor Petrov had been sentenced to 35 years in federal prison, and his conviction had triggered a domino effect that exposed corruption in construction and real estate development across 3 continents. The trials were still ongoing, but Maya and Alexander had testified months ago and were finally free to focus on building rather than litigation. Probably, Maya said sympathetically. But think of it this way. Every time we tell that story, more people understand why affordable housing matters. And more importantly, more people believe that change is actually possible. Speaking of change, Alexander's voice carried a note of nervous excitement that made Maya look at him more closely. What are you planning, Sterling? Nothing too dramatic, Alexander said, his grey eyes twinkling. Just a little celebration for what we've accomplished. Alexander. Maya Elenachyn, Alexander said, suddenly dropping to one knee and pulling a ring box from his jacket pocket. Will you marry me? Maya felt her breath catch. The ring was beautiful, a stunning emerald surrounded by diamonds. But what made her eyes fill with tears was the expression on Alexander's face. Gone was any trace of the manipulative billionaire who had orchestrated her life 2 years ago. This was just Alexander, vulnerable and hopeful, and offering her his heart with complete honesty. Are you sure you're ready for a lifetime of arguments about sustainable building materials and debates over community garden placement? Maya asked, her voice trembling with emotion. I'm ready for a lifetime of anything, as long as it's with you, Alexander replied. Maya, you've taught me what it means to build something that lasts. Not just buildings, but trust, partnership, love. I want to spend the rest of my life creating beautiful things with you. Yes, Maya whispered, then louder. Yes, absolutely yes. Alexander slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then stood to kiss her as the families in the courtyard below began cheering and applauding. Apparently, their proposal had been more public than they'd realized. Did you plan that audience? Maya asked against his lips. Maybe, Alexander admitted with a grin. I figured if I was going to propose to the most amazing woman in the world, it should be in one of the communities we built together. Maya looked around at the thriving neighborhood they'd created. Children playing safely, adults relaxing on porches designed for connection, gardens growing food that would nourish both bodies and spirits. It was everything she'd dreamed of when she'd been sketching impossible designs in her cramped studio apartment. I have something to tell you, Maya said, her voice suddenly shy. What? I got a call from my father yesterday. Alexander went very still. Diego called you? He's being released next month. Good behavior, and the testimony he provided about Victor's network knocked several years off his sentence. Maya took a deep breath. He wants to meet me, to apologize in person, and to see what I've built. How do you feel about that? Maya considered the question carefully. Scared, excited, nervous, but also ready. I spent so many years being angry about the father I thought abandoned me, and then angry about the father who turned out to be a criminal. But watching these families move into homes that will never harm them, seeing children grow up in places designed for their flourishing, I think I understand what redemption actually looks like. And what does it look like? It looks like choosing to build something better than what came before, even when you can't undo the damage that was done. Maya smiled up at him. Your father would be proud of what we've accomplished, Alexander. And I think my father will be too. Maya, Alexander said softly, there's something else I need to tell you. Maya felt a familiar flutter of anxiety. Please tell me it's not another secret that's going to turn my world upside down. Not exactly, Alexander said with a laugh. But Carmen may have been helping me plan this proposal for the last month. My mother was in on this. She's also flying in tomorrow with Jasmine to help plan the engagement party she's already started organizing. Maya shook her head in amazement. My mother has been matchmaking from 3,000 miles away. Your mother, Alexander said with deep affection, told me that if I was going to marry her daughter, I needed to do it properly, with family and community, and enough celebration to make up for all the years you didn't believe you deserved beautiful things. Maya felt tears streaming down her face. Happy tears this time. Tears of gratitude for a life that had turned out more beautiful than anything she'd ever dared to dream. "I love you, Alexander Sterling," she said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him again. "I love your big dreams and your stubborn optimism and your complete inability to do anything halfway." "I love you too, Maya-chan," Alexander replied. "I love your brilliant mind and your fierce heart and your absolute refusal to accept that things can't be better than they are." As the sun set over Detroit, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink that reflected off the solar panels of the Sterlington community, Maya realized that she had finally built the thing she'd been trying to create her entire life: a home. Not just the physical structures that housed families, but the intangible architecture of love, trust, and shared purpose that had transformed her from a struggling architect into a woman who could change the world. 6 months later, Maya-chan married Alexander Sterling in a ceremony held in the courtyard of their Seattle housing project, surrounded by hundreds of families whose lives had been transformed by their work. Carmen walked her daughter down an aisle lined with children from Sterlington communities across the country, while Diego Vasquez, thin and graying but beaming with pride, waited at the altar to officially welcome Alexander into a family built on forgiveness and second chances. The wedding was featured on magazine covers around the world, but Maya's favorite photo was the candid shot taken by a 7-year-old resident of their Detroit community. Maya and Alexander kissing under an arch of solar panels, while children played in gardens designed to nourish both body and soul. In her wedding vows, Maya promised to spend her life building homes that healed, communities that flourished, and a love that could weather any storm. Alexander promised to trust her vision, support her dreams, and never again try to save her from challenges she was strong enough to face herself. But the promise that meant the most to both of them was the one they made together: to use their love, their resources, and their combined talents to ensure that every family, regardless of income, background, or circumstances, would have access to a home that dignified their humanity and supported their dreams. The Sterlington Foundation went on to revolutionize affordable housing across 6 continents, building communities that served as models for sustainable development worldwide. Maya's designs won every major architectural award, but she remained most proud of the thank you letters from families whose lives had been transformed by living in homes built with love instead of greed. And every evening, when Maya and Alexander returned to their own home, a modest house in the heart of their first Detroit community, they would sit on their porch and watch the neighborhood they'd helped create come alive with the sounds of children playing, families sharing meals, and dreams taking root in soil designed to help them grow. Maya-chan Sterling had saved a billionaire from falling bricks, and in return, he had given her the resources to save the world. But what she treasured most wasn't the global recognition or the architectural revolution they'd sparked. What she treasured was the quiet moment each night when Alexander would take her hand and they would sit together, watching their dreams take physical form in the laughter of children and the contentment of families who finally had homes worthy of their hopes. Sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is refuse to accept that good things are impossible. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to build the world you want to see, you discover that love, real, honest, transformative love, is the strongest foundation of all. Maya had started as an architect of buildings, but she had become something much more important: an architect of hope, a builder of dreams, and a woman who had learned that the most beautiful structures are the ones built with a partner who believes in your vision enough to bet everything on it. In the end, that was the story that mattered most, not the dramatic rescue or the dangerous confrontation or the media attention that followed, but the quiet daily choice to keep building something beautiful together, one day at a time, one family at a time, one dream at a time. And as Maya fell asleep each night in Alexander's arms, surrounded by the community they'd created and the love they'd built, she knew that they had accomplished something truly revolutionary. They had proven that the world could be healed, one home at a time.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed the story, you will surely love the next one. It is as interesting and even more intriguing than you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.